This is Ed Driscoll for PJmedia.com. We're coming to you once again from the Lido deck of the MS Nieuw Amsterdam on the last day of the National Review cruise. And we're talking today with Victor Davis Hanson, who is a contributor of both PJ Media and National Review. And Victor, thanks for stopping by today.
Thank you for having me, Ed.
Victor, I know you got on the cruise kind of late, right?
Yes, I did. I came in from Jamaica.
And that was, so you've just been on board for a couple of days.
I came in Wednesday late afternoon. I had to give a lecture in Michigan, and then I had to kind of leapfrog across to catch the boat.
What's your sense of the cruise so far?
Very nice. I've been on about 5 or 6 of these, so they're always a little strange when they're after an election, and especially when after
a losing
election. And people seem to be each day misery likes company, so they're getting over it, so to speak, I suppose. But because I wasn't here at the beginning, it does seem there's a little bit of anger at the establishment, quote unquote, the Republican establishment, or barring that, perhaps that they feel that when they read the Drudge Report, they listen to Fox News, they listen to talk radio, they don't get a. I don't know how you can blame somebody for doing that, but they find themselves in that landscape, and then they want people to on the one hand to tell them what they want to hear, but then they get angry when what they hear is not what's happened. Mm-hmm. So they're kind of angry at the Rasmussen poll or Dick Morris's prognosis or something like that.
Victor, is this a legitimate case of what the left likes to call, quote-unquote, epistemic closure? Although it seems like both sides of the aisle were pretty well cocooned when it came to their media choices during the election year.
Well, all of these are predicated on who wins or loses. Had Romney, say if the hurricane had not have struck, or all of these post-election bad statistics had been released earlier, or whatever the hypothetical, and had they won, they would be saying, this is a new media. Mm-hmm. But you take away 2 or 3 points in the popular vote, and then it's all the benefit of hindsight.
But even if Romney had won, I think the National Review cruisers would be saying right now, yeah, we won, and that's great. But it's clear that we've also really lost the popular culture. We've
lost the popular culture. If you by that you mean the fare on television or real TV, or what the universities are teaching, or what you see on the streets of Venice Beach or something. Absolutely, the popular culture is gone. And I also, from talking to people here, there's sort of a cocooning phenomenon that people are talking at the most extreme. Well, I'm going to be a survivalist, or at the least extreme, I just am going to be a disconnect. There was a word in Athens called quietism, ancient Athens, where people in the 4th century had enough of democracy. It's Plato and his buddies, they just kind of disconnected psychologically from the main culture. So I think people think I'm just going to go into hibernation during the Obama period.
Well, I know early on during the Obama administration, Glenn Reynolds of Instapundit started talking about business owners, quote-unquote, going Galt.
Yeah.
And it sounds like individuals, even if they're not business owners, may increasingly start doing that to some extent themselves.
Yeah, I think that doesn't have to be taken literally. I think all of us have a feeling that they're not going to get upset at what they see on television, that they're not going to be outraged when Chris Matthews goes onto a spew, or they're not going to get furious when Barack Obama has the next enemy that he identifies, pay your share fare for tomorrow. He said they just expect that, and they just very slowly and methodically will try to change it. But they're not optimistic, I think, as much as they are resigned.
Mm-hmm. Well, you've talked quite a bit, especially in your PJ Media column, about the state of California,
yes.
The very poor state of California.
Yes.
What advice would you give to help rebuild?
Well, California, the voters they wanted higher taxes on the so-called wealthy. They got super majorities now in the legislature. They can do whatever they want. So if they want to bankrupt Los Angeles, they're welcome to do it. And my attitude is, if they want to raise taxes, which they did to 13.3, it's going to hit a lot of blue people, so to speak. And if they want to let in 7 million illegal aliens, and there's only so many private schools they can, if they want 49th in the nation in math and science in their kids' schools, so they ultimately get what they want, and they have to live with the consequences. They take the rest of the people down with them, but there's natural, I guess what I'm stumbling for the answer is there's natural correctives for this, called bankruptcy and flight, and if they do want to make every Californian who makes over 250 pay 13 or more, 500 over 500 make 13.3. They will leave, most of them. Then they won't have enough taxpayers, and they'll have to have a higher sales tax.
So it sounds like before things get better, California will continue to viciously auger itself even further into the ground.
The problem with California is twofold. Is it's so wealthy naturally. It's such a beautiful state with tourism and agriculture and two great ports, Pacific Rim coastline, and it had such a wonderful inheritance, and it was very well governed in the 50s and 60s, so it had a wonderful infrastructure, educational system, and it's very hard to destroy that in just 2 generations. So we're really living on the fumes of past and natural contributions, but we are getting to the point where we're managing the impossible. We're destroying something that I thought you couldn't destroy.
Well, the culture of the 50s and 60s, including liberal culture, was pretty optimistic about the future in retrospect.
It was. It was a liberal idea, if you take illegal immigration or racial divisiveness, the liberal idea was the melting pot. And we're all going to look differently, but we're all going to be united by one language, one culture. This multicultural idea that we're all going to be tribal and keep in our own enclaves and then jostle each other for the spoils that's given out by technocratic elite, that wasn't part of the liberal idea. And the same thing about education. It was, we're going to take the people from the barrio and the ghetto, we're going to bring them in, we're going to teach them the King's English, they're going to learn how to quote Shakespeare, they're going to have all the tools necessary to advance. It wasn't this idea that they're going to learn that Chicano lowriding is an art form. So that's what, and then the same thing with popular culture will be, the Great Book Society, or we're going to watch Judgment at Nuremberg together, which is not going to be the Kardashians. So that's what I think has stunned a lot of people, that some of us could anticipate that the next evolution from a liberal culture was sort of a 60s nihilism, but I don't think liberals thought that.
We could spend the whole interview on this topic, but Victor, what causes a culture or intellectuals leading or shaping a culture to lose faith in its future?
I think originally the catalyst is affluence and leisure. California became so wealthy and so leisured and so, affluent that people forgot that you really have to do certain banal things like get up at 6 in the morning and work, and then say to yourself, am I taking anything from the state? If I am taking, am I contributing more than I am? That self-examination every day that really is a part of poverty, drudgery, challenge. But when you get in California, that you have these natural incentives to be lazy. I mean, the weather is so beautiful, the geography is so beautiful. There's so much natural wealth that you can sort of coast, and people can carry you along. And what's happened in California is that they, quote unquote, the guys that are bad, the old white male exploiting class who should pay the 13th, there's not enough of them anymore. They're either leaving or they're hiding or they're not having children, but they were so bad that they just kind of disappeared. And so it's going to be very hard for Californians. Who do you blame for lack of diversity at UC Berkeley? The Asians that are 5 times there in numbers over their population ratios? Or who do you blame for the grammar school a mile from my home that's 99.5 Hispanic? There's no diversity. So there's not enough oppressors. There's too many victims now, and there's not enough nativist, sexist, misogynist, homophobic men to go around.
Victor, last couple of questions. Given the terrible state that most administrations find themselves in during their second term,
Yes, they all do.
what are you predicting in the near future for the second term of the Obama administration?
Well, it's only been 2 weeks, and we learned that the number of jobs was far less with the revised post-election figures. There's many more people on food stamps than we were told. Inflation is higher than we were told. The Petraeus matter is a little bit scarier than we thought. Benghazi is a little bit deeper than anticipated, and this is just in the first 10 days. So, whether it's Katrina with Bush, or there's insurgency, or whether Iran Gate, or whether it's Monica or Watergate, this is, in general, happens when people relax or they try to hush problems in the first administration. But in the case of Obama, he's got a little bit longer shelf life because there's no media as we define that term today. It's a court ministry of truth, so they can suppress it, so it'll take a bit longer. But there were certain fatal flaws, I think, in the first administration. People weren't candid, they were not professional, and that'll finally come out.
And any last thoughts for the readers of PJ Media or National Review or conservatives in general?
Well, you know, people are faulting Romney. He was a good man. But I do think that if you look at the history of, since Reagan, we've only won 2 popular votes. George H.W. Bush in '88, and that was because Lee Atwater went wild on Dukakis and defined him as an effete Harvard snob. And then George W. Bush and Karl Rove defined John Kerry as a spandex-wearing, wetsuit windsurfer. And that should tell you something, that Republicans are so vulnerable to the charge of being plutocrats because their message is, we may get wealthier, but everybody will get wealthy. And equality is not going to get, forced equality is not going to get the poor wealthy. That means that they really got to watch who they nominate, because we need some guy who sells cars, or an accountant, or runs a contracting business that talks sort of a Rick Perry who knows what he's doing, so that we can't, or Joe the plumber with brains, or Tito the builder, whoever they are. We need somebody that resonates with the working classes, and I think that was a lesson that another candidate, not that I'm not one of these that criticizes Romney. I just think that another candidate would not have been so vulnerable to outsourcing, or having an elevator in his home, or wearing a wetsuit, or betting somebody $10,000 on the stage, or saying that they love Cadillacs and they have 2. A member of the working class might have a better chance. Sort of like they're Democrats. Until Obama came along, it was a law you could not nominate a Democrat for president without a Southern accent. McGovern, Dukakis, Mondale, Kerry, you could not elect them. They had to be a Carter or LBJ or Clinton, or even Al Gore got the popular. So there are certain rules in politics, and we've got to remember what they are.
Victor Davis Hanson of National Review and PJmedia.com. Thanks for taking time out from the last day of the National Review cruise to talk with us today.
Thanks for having me here.